My name is Micha Archer, and I'm an author and illustrator. And you're here in my studio. And this is a book that I'm working on right now called While We're Here, written by Anne Winter. And you can see I am mostly done. All I need to do now is the cover. So we're still deciding on a cover for it. I work in collage, and I make my own papers, which you'll see a demonstration of. I make my own stamps. I use all kinds of papers that I've collected. Sometimes I even use music paper and lots of origami paper. But usually every piece of paper that I put down, I've changed in some way so that it gives a lot of depth to an illustration. This is my studio. It's in my house. These are my brushes and my pens. And down here, I have boxes of scraps that I divided into different boxes for different colors. And here are some 3D things that I've made. I made a sleigh that I could paint from to do this sleigh in this book, Snow Horses, and a picnic table for this scene in the book While We're Here. Here I have my scissors up on a magnet. I have tape. And over here I have my inks. These are acrylic inks that I use when I'm painting the faces or making collage paper. Here's a beautiful piece of artwork by a friend of mine who's a collage artist and illustrator, Equa Holmes. More inks. And here's an author that I worked with on 2 books. We did this book, Snow Horses, together. And here is my award for a Caldecott honor in 2022. These are drawers where I keep my paper. This is origami paper. And here are my yellows and brown paper. And here are my greens. So my paper is kind of like my palette. These are tissue papers. And here are papers from all over the world that I've collected. And orange papers. So there's papers that I've stamped, and you'll see some of the ways that I make my paper when I do my demonstration. My pinks and purples. And these are my books, all the books that I've illustrated, and these are the ones that I've written. And there's 3 more coming out in the next couple years, so keep your eyes out. Okay, this is a dummy for a book that I'm working on right now, written by Anne Winter. And this is all done in pencil, and then the words I put in on the computer. So these are sketches that I show the art director so she or he knows how this book is going to look, how the words will be laid out, and how the story goes. So I'm the one who chooses where the words go and how to split up the words into the different pages. And here we're seeing before and after, so the sketch and the final. And you can see how the final doesn't come out exactly like the sketch. So I change things sometimes when I think it'll work better. So these are tiny little sketches, but they turn into big pictures. So I like to work tiny in my sketches because I know that they'll look good when they're big if they're good when they're tiny. So you can see all the collage that I used, all these little pieces of paper glued on, layer after layer, taking you all the way through to the end of the book. And even from now, there'll be changes. put some paint right on your wax paper. And then you can make a print of that. So you get some great effects. So something like this would be a great sunset. You can add more colors. And this is just with watercolor. But they have to be nice and wet. So that's one way you can make fun paper that you can cut up and use. So this one we're going to do rubbings of just things that you might find around the house. So this is some fruit wrapper that makes a great texture when you do a rubbing of it. So this is just using a crayon that I've taken the paper off of, and then you can just do layer after layer of these dots. And the more you do, the better, and the more you go right out to the edges, the better. And then you can take your watercolors, and because it's wax, it's going to resist. So you can see how those little dots are showing through because the paint can't cover the wax. It's resisting it. And all of these things are making different kinds of papers that I use when I do collage. Just to I found this great box that has lots of ridges in it, and this too could be something that you use as a pattern. And you can just move your paper around to get your design all the way out to the edges. So you're going to be starting to constantly look for fun things to do rubbings of once you start doing this. So this would be fun to do as buildings. You could cut them out as buildings. So that's another way to make paper, by doing rubbings with crayon. Just squeeze it out at one side of your paper like this, and then you take a credit card and you just spread it across your paper. And another great thing you can do is put something underneath and make a rubbing using this method. Put it underneath. Totally different texture. So I'm going to put a little more green so that they become my colors. And so I'm not necessarily thinking about one specific thing that I'm making paper for. I'm just having fun making paper, and then we'll see what we use it for. So I make my own stamps, and what I usually do is just take a block of wood and I glue something on it. And in this case, I used a bicycle inner tube, cut it up and glued it on. And then what I love to do is make my own stamp pad. Now this is just packing material that comes with most everything you get these days. And I love it as my stamp pad. So I take my paint and I spread it onto here. And sometimes I use a little sprayer to make the paint a little bit wet. And this becomes my stamp pad. And I find that having something cushiony underneath helps when you're using a stamp. So let's see how this works. So then I can just make this pattern all over the whole thing. I can use a few colors. So I use, on the other side, it looks like I made a snowflake for one of the books I was working on. I think I just cut paper very thin and made this snowflake pattern. So we can see what that looks like. Let's see what the snowflake looks like when you put it right over this. Oh, that's cool. You can even use a flower for a stamp. For this I used a poppy. So we're going to use some of the paper that I just made to create an owl. You can see I folded the paper in half, kind of like when you're making a Valentine, so that when you open it, it's the same on both sides. And here I am making two of the same by folding the paper. And one thing that's great is you can change your mind. So you can see I made some wings and I didn't like the color, so I tried again. So that's the wonderful thing about collage, is that you can keep trying something until you get it just how you like it. Here I cut two little eyes, and I cut again to let the color come through from behind. So you're doing lots of layering. And sometimes I'll leave it loose in some places because I know eventually I will want to put something underneath. So here I'm making some feet, and I can slide them right underneath so that they're behind the piece of paper that's already down. Another great thing is that you can tear paper instead of cut it, because it gives you a nice edge, so it looks more like a branch here. And it means that if you're not a great cutter, you can tear things and try to make a whole collage with tearing things. Here I'm folding the paper twice and cutting out a leaf. And so when you fold the paper twice, you get 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you fold that paper 3 times, you would get 8 leaves. So there's our owl.